So you work with plexiglass a lot. So can you expand on why you like working with plexiglass for sculpture?
Well, one thing I loved about it so much was when I pushed the sheet of material and pushing it into the shape I wanted. And then I let my hands go and watched it take its own spot. It dried into a very natural form. And I just love that. Of course, I love the light and shadow reflection. But I want to tell you about one sculpture, the Blitt sculpture, that I started with a 2-foot disc, round disc, and I heated it and pushed it in the center, trying to make my shape I wanted. And I pushed so hard that my hand came through and it tore. And I don't know if I was upset for a second, but when I saw the beautiful torn edge, I was very happy. And I took advantage of that accident to make, perhaps at that time, and I still feel maybe it's my most important sculpture. And the reason why I feel it's so important, not is I concluded in looking at it, that was felt like the contrast of pain and joy. At one time, I started calling it joy/pain, and then I went back to the word orbit because I like for people to see whatever they want in my work.
That's great. That's wonderful. So there's one last clip from this film, Dancing Hands, which shows more about your transitions in your work related to drawing and your monumental sculptures, which are installed in many countries around the world at this point. So let's look at, this is a 7-minute clip from the film Dancing Hands.
I remember through the years of working on sculpture, and I would be struggling with the physical efforts of working with materials and involvement and pain sometimes. And I'd stop and remember the sheer joy of painting. And, I'd say, what kind of nut am I to give up that joy of painting? But I never doubted that I was doing the right thing. It was just funny to realize the contrast between spontaneously and joyously putting paint down on canvas and struggling with the physical demands of being a sculptor. In 1952, I wanted some drawings to go over our bed, and I put my doodles on good drawing paper. It was an arabesque dancing line, and I didn't have the maturity, the sophistication to just leave that line alone and let it just be a beautiful line. I suppose, was embarrassed to just put a beautiful line up on the wall. So in order to justify the existence of that line, I added a face and hands and shoes and even sequins to match the bedspread in the room.
23 years later, I made this sculpture from a spontaneous drawing. It was then I realized my doodles were the essence of me. So I started buying stacks of drawing pads and pouring out drawings, page after page after page. these lines danced from my hands, I believed that they were related to the trees that I drew as a child. I always drew trees, and I always felt each branch as it grew up from the roots. This was the first of my spontaneous drawings that I turned into sculpture. From this time, everything that I would create would come from the spontaneous drawing. This is Nessie, about which I also have written a children's book. I call this dancing. I don't know how it happened, but all of a sudden I took up 2 Conte crayons and started drawing with both hands at once. Trying to figure out why on earth I was drawing with both hands at once, I remembered how my work has been influenced by dance, and I realized that perhaps I'm dancing on paper. And how can you dance with one half of your body? I needed my entire body to dance, to feel whole.